Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Jazmin Morales, who serves as Assistant Director of the Colburn School's Center for Innovation and Community Impact, where also she founded Fortissima, which we can talk about a little bit as well, but is an artistic and leadership development program for young women of color in classical music. Jazmin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, and of course, I would be very remiss if I did not also add that Jazmin has participated in the Sphinx Lead program and has been involved with Sphinx. And so Sphinx is very, very proud of that association with your leadership, which really is extraordinary. So obviously we are, I like to always just get right into issues. We are in the midst of a time, certainly in my life, when issues surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, ED&I, EDIB, right? Everyone has different terminologies, but I would say the overall area of focus has been more prominent than ever in my entire life. And some seem to really be getting it and doing impactful work. Others seem like they might still be finding themselves. And of course, Colburn is doing some really critical, important work. And I'm very, very excited because the Colburn School is our co-curator for this week's show, and thought we would just delve off with what is actually happening at Colburn as it relates to ED&I. And as you share that, just keep in mind that, we have, viewers from around the country, around the world, and we're who represent a lot of organizations where some of the things you're sharing, they might look to be able to replicate or be able to collaborate with some of the work that you're doing. So with that very broad question to start us off, but EDI as it's happening at Colburn now, if you could share.
Absolutely. So I'm really proud of the work that we've developed over the last year, but really far beyond that. The approach that we've taken is a really holistic and multifaceted approach that touches on areas of artistic planning, programming, institutional learning, curricular learning at the institution, and a lot of strategic community initiatives and partnerships. And so on the artistic side, we have a new series called the Amplify series, where we are amplifying the voices of artists of color. And for our inaugural season this year, the majority of our artists are actually alumni of Colburn, and now actually one new faculty member, Silas Farley, who is our new Dean of Dance. And so we're working with these artists on residencies and commissioning ideas, and activating them throughout the institution, both digitally and in person later this fall. We also just opened up a student commissioning program, a social innovation granting program where students can apply for funding to commission BIPOC composers or choreographers, or can also lead community initiatives that are in service to BIPOC students. And so activating our own student and community base to amplify this work far beyond just the auspices of Colburn, and also using that as a professional development for our students who will need these skills in their future careers as artists and musicians. And then on the institutional learning side, we're doing a lot, especially in the conservatory curriculum, to better address the range of systemic issues that are presenting themselves in classical music. And so, for instance, this year we had a new class of the history of race and symphony orchestras. We're taking a historical and sociological approach to understanding these issues, especially for international students who have a different understanding of what's happening in America, and giving them better context to participate in the conversations that we're having in the school. and also leading institutional learning, and for the first time, we're taking a really broad and serious approach to how we're having these conversations throughout the institution, both at the faculty and staff level, but also in leadership and with the board, and thinking about ways that we might begin to include other parts of our constituency, like families and audiences, into the learning that we're doing all together. And finally, this piece around community, which has presented both in strategic partnerships, one of which is with Sphinx, which we're really happy about, the other of which is with the Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles, IC Yola, out here, where we're doing some deep partnership work here locally, but also thinking nationally. For a school like Colburn that has both a high local and national profile, it was important for us to have partnerships in EDI at both of those levels. And so we're really excited about all of the work coming down the tubes with Sphinx especially, but also with our growing relationship with Iceola and getting able to do that here in LA. And also, developing internal programs that expand our community reach. And Fortissimo, which you spoke about, is, I think, a sort of top of mind for me, obviously, right now, but is also one that is now operating at a national level that is allowing us to build relationships with pathway programs and other schools throughout the nation whose students may or may not know that Colburn exists, or that they can come get a free conservatory education. And so being able to bring students of color to campus, and removing all barriers to access, whether that's financial or geographic, and getting them here to help them see their futures at Colburn, has been an exciting part of that work as well.
Wow, wow. So here's what stands out to me and what I wonder. You've described not just great work, but a breadth of work across multiple areas that are obviously critically important if an institution's really going to, evolve as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what I wonder, especially thinking about curricular work and all that, I know for sure there are institutions, there are people watching this show right now who represent or potentially even lead institutions where they want to see this level of change in actual programming, in actual artistic engagement, in actual curricular changes, but they've either been running into some obstacles, they've run into some pushback, or potentially even run into systems that end up slowing things down, where maybe what you're doing and have accomplished in the past 6 months or a year, some other institutions are looking like 3 to 5 years, right? So it seems like you're doing both a lot of work, but in a breadth. Have you just not experienced that kind of pushback or some of those challenges, right, that exist at institutions? And or if you have experienced them, what are any of the things that you've done that would be of help to those at other institutions who are trying to accomplish similar things?
Well, in my area, which is the Center for Innovation and Community Impact, we're a two-person team, myself and our dean, Nate Seisler, who's a Michigan alum, proud Michigan alum.
Go blue,
and
go blue.
Yes, indeed. Our style has always been very much, this idea of the intrapreneur, right? As a center for innovation in a conservatory or a historically conservative institution where change doesn't usually happen very quickly. To have a center for innovation seems like kind of a counterintuitive idea. And it gives us space to be those gentle disruptors, to agitate conversation and bring it to a level that can actually move things forward. And so we take this approach of having a long-term vision, but also being able to execute step by step. And sometimes, I'll say that the growth that we experienced over the summer was definitely dramatic. As you said, like the pace at which things are happening, I think, is really unprecedented. But that would not have been able to happen had we not been laying the quiet groundwork for all of those relationships, all of those ideas for programs that we were piloting that now can step forth with full, confidence and just readiness, I think, to step in when that moment arrived. And so it takes, I think, a certain level of resilience, which I attribute to my participation in LEAD. Frankly, it has been a huge learning for me, and just the need for leaders who are implementing change in big institutions, it takes a personal dedication to the work, but also a personal dedication to sometimes leaving your feelings out. And when those little setbacks happen, being able to get up and try again and find a new way and innovate, right? And you pivot here and there, whichever angle we need to go to get that entry point. And it has been really rewarding to be able to do this work and see it materialize in tangible change. And that certainly is keeping me going.
Awesome, awesome. And I hear not only, of course, the extraordinary skill sets you're specifically individually bringing to bear, but I also love this idea you're really sharing that having some type of focal point, I could imagine, moving forward, every top conservatory music school having some equivalent of a center for innovation, a place where people are empowered to really lead this change that can sometimes be true systemic change at an institution. I love that, love that. So unfortunately, we're running short on time. This is great to learn about these aspects, but also Arts Engines is all about the engines who are moving our field forward. And so for you, I'm curious, right, you've got this breadth of work that you do. You certainly have encountered various challenges to be able to be so successful. As you think about your own leadership, where do you draw upon, or what do you draw upon for your own inspiration, for your own strength, for that resilience that you were talking about? What fuels that resilience in you? What do you turn to or draw upon for that?
For me, it's all about relationships. It's my students who keep me running in this work, but also my colleagues, and especially, again, talking Sphinx Lead. My colleagues in Sphinx Lead have been a huge source of not just inspiration, but friendship and a soft place to land when something happens or I need feedback on something or an idea. That community has just been so transformative in my life and something that I'm really grateful for. And of course, just my friends and family, all of those relationships continue to nourish me and help me keep doing the work.
Jasmine Morales, you truly are one of the great arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.